Hi everybody, it's John Pushkar, and I'm here today again to bring you the final episode of the Captain of Obvious Fired Equipment Hazards series. And today we're going to talk about that little obscure world of safety relief valves, primarily associated with boilers, but also associated with hot water heaters and steam distribution systems. Hopefully here you get some very important obvious nugget that makes a real serious difference in the safety and risk management of your organization. Over the last 40 years, I've developed and led fuels and combustion equipment safety programs for the largest manufacturers in the world. Today, I'm bringing you knowledge, insights, and best practices about fired equipment and natural gas safety. Over the next few minutes, you'll get the kind of practical, real-life explanations that I've become known for. So you step out of the boiler room, you look up to where the safety relief valve discharge piping is, and you see wisps of steam coming out of there. You climb up, you look closer, and you do actually have steam coming out of the safety relief valves just a little bit. Well, this is an obvious problem, folks. This is called weeping. It's where there's a little tiny leak occurring between the stem and the seat of the safety relief valve. This little tiny leak, under great pressure, starts to erode the stem and the seat material. There are then mineral deposits that build up as this water continues to lay there. Over time, you can impact the ability of the stem and the seat to separate from each other. This completely compromises the functionality of the safety relief valve, and it's an obvious problem. Safety relief valves should all have a discharge pipe connected to them to take the discharge materials out to a safe place. This pipe should almost never be under pressure unless, of course, there's a discharge. Because of this, it's hard to understand if there's actually a leak in the discharge piping. If this discharge piping is not securely connected or doesn't go to a safe place, it can be a catastrophic problem. In fact, this problem took the lives of two people at the state of Kansas' largest power generating facility a few years ago. In fact, I did an episode about it. And if you'd like to know more, look up my 2 steam fatalities at Kansas power plant episode. Most larger safety relief valves have a special leaded seal that's attached with wiring to where the adjustment mechanism is. These need to be in place so that jurisdictional inspectors, and you for that matter, know that no one's made some sort of unauthorized adjustment of any of the pressure set points or blowdown set points of the relief valve. If this lead seal's not here, it may not be safe to operate with this safety relief valve. This is an obvious thing you can look for. It should be obvious that there's no weight from the discharge piping that's actually settled into and being carried by the safety relief valve itself. This is why these are generally installed with what's called a drip pan elbow. This has a small piece of pipe protruding vertically that's smaller in diameter than the discharge piping that you're attaching. There should actually be no touching of these 2 piping systems with a drip pan elbow that's properly installed. This is something that should be obvious to you and easy to check for. And likewise, drip pan elbows and most safety relief valve discharge piping systems have some sort of drain attached to them. You can imagine that if rainwater comes in through the discharge line, or if there is weeping of the safety relief valve, you want this water to be able to go somewhere other than to the stem-to-seat connection of this valve. If you've got a drip pan elbow, if you have a drain system, make sure it's open and the drains work. Safety relief valves lose capacity if the piping system is restricted from what the manufacturer gave you, either on the way in are on the way out. You can see obvious bushings installed with this safety relief valve. These are a no-no. When I talk about discharging to a safe place, I mean away from where people can get hurt. On the right-hand side here, you see that I'm discharging kind of towards a platform and a ladder assembly where someone could be standing. We never want to put people in jeopardy from safety relief valve discharges. There are some smaller safety relief valves that I know of that have been recalled by manufacturers. You can go to the Consumer Product Safety Commission website and do a search for those. The information given will make it obvious to you whether or not you have one of these. You may even have one of these on a hot water heater at home. All safety relief valve systems require some type of inspection and testing program. If you have jurisdictional boiler equipment, you'll be required to show evidence of this kind of program. You might need to have some type of a log sheet that's maintained with when you've inspected and tested. Make sure that you speak to jurisdictional inspectors to make sure that you're in compliance. There's at least 3 tests that need to be performed: a lift or a function test, a set point test, and a blowdown rate test. Most folks with high pressure systems, they have spare valves and they rotate freshly calibrated, tested spare valves into service periodically in accordance with what a jurisdictional inspector for them allows. Doing any safety relief valve tests is not for amateurs. You need special training. Most safety relief valves have something called a try lever. That's where you try the valve to see if it actually will lift and function to make sure the stem is not seized to the seat. But when you do these kind of tests, you need at least 75% of the set point of the valve. Otherwise, you could put too much stress on the spindle. You also need to be very careful because if the discharge is somewhat compromised, this steam could end up coming back at you. You should also know that another hazard of testing is that oftentimes when you release the try lever, the valves don't seat properly. Sometimes it has to be done a few times. And if it sticks open, you could compromise the functionality of your entire boiler system. So again, not for amateurs, needs to be very carefully planned, maybe right before you do a shutdown, and you should have spare valves ready to be replaced that are freshly calibrated and serviced. And just where are all the safety relief valves you might need to test? Are they only on boilers? Absolutely not. Safety relief valves are in service on hot water heaters, and let me tell you something, it doesn't have to be big to really cause you a problem. A 100-gallon hot water heater, well, that can store as much force as 10 sticks of dynamite. This horrible event that happened in 1982 in Spencer, Oklahoma, is not an isolated incident. This particular event took the lives of 5 students and 1 teacher at this elementary school. You can never take hot water heaters for granted, even the one that's in your own home. And it's not only steam systems, hot water boilers, hydronic systems, well, they also have safety relief valves. And in the case of smaller systems like hot water heaters, usually you just replace them, because to inspect them, you got to take them off and kind of look back into where the temperature probe installs, look for corrosion. That's all indicated on that little yellow tag with the fine print. Once you do all this, for the relatively inexpensive cost of these, you're better off putting a new one in. Oftentimes, these don't reseat once you try a lift test. And remember also to review the steam distribution systems, because after pressure regulating stations, pressure reducing valves, there's typically a safety relief valve that's there to protect the rest of the system in case that pressure regulating station fails. These also need to have some sort of testing and inspection program. Although they're typically not a jurisdictional matter, they can still cause you big problems if they fail. And last but not least, I sort of mentioned it already, but it's worth mentioning again, make sure you have some spares. Safety relief valves can lift at any moment, and sometimes, even if it's for a legitimate purpose, they don't reseal properly. It could take you weeks, especially in today's environment, to get a replacement or get an existing valve serviced. I doubt that you can afford to be down for that long. Hi, it's John Pushkar. I hope you found this episode useful. If you'd like to know about more ways that I can help, you can check out my website at www.prescientts.com. There you'll find information about the Prescient Technical Services Online School, my book, Fuels and Combustion System Safety, What You Don't Know Can Kill You, and also about some of the consulting projects that I've been providing to clients for the past 40 years. Things like implementing inspection and testing programs on a corporate enterprise-wide level, things like reviewing and commenting on capital equipment purchases that involve combustion equipment, and even being a legal expert if things go really wrong. Once again, thank you for attending, and remember, be safe out there. The life you save, it just might be yours.